can I ask you a question after that topic? That, say, in a hypothetical situation, an idol worshipper he dies, and because he's an idol worshipper, he's not forgiven per se, would, say, go to hell and would have like a videotape played of all his sins until he goes through that tortuous path of hell, until finally, as everyone I think does, comes to heaven. Is that exactly what happens in the heaven-like hell state?
You see, on that I should
eventually he's forgiven. Is that right?
On that I should not venture to further, visualize what may have happened and how it may have happened.
Yeah.
The way you were describing it, it seemed as if you have a concept of a corporal sort of,
Conveyor belt.
material hell, huh?
Yeah.
In which there are corridors, meandering corridors, interesting corridors. You go through one to the other, from one chamber to the other, until you go to the last relieving chamber, and from then on you are released to the open.
It's just as someone explained to me
outside of hell.
That hell is like a very, very slow videotape of all the worst deeds that you've ever done. You think, oh, on earth did I do that? Why did I do this sin? That's why there's a hell-like state.
No, but all these things are going to take some spiritual shape. And the feeling of pleasure will be transformed into something which will take a spiritual form. And you will enjoy that not just as subjective feeling, but also an objective something would help you enjoy that. What I mean to say is that here you can enjoy things in two ways. You feel satisfied, deeply satiated, and you're by yourself, and you feel happy. But there are reasons, outside reasons for that. Maybe a glimpse of the beloved one, maybe something you wanted to have for long, you have been yearning for that, and you have received intimation that you are about to have it. Things of that nature. You have satiated yourself by having a hearty meal which you liked. People belonging to different categories enjoy things differently. But there is an outside agent helping. So the question he raises is, or perhaps which arises out of what he says, is that would hell be something entirely subjective, or will it have an outside impression? So also, will heaven be entirely subjective, or will it have an outside expression? Now, why do I refer to it as expression? I'll come to that later. Now, according to Hazrat Masih Maud study of the Quran and understanding under divine guidance, what we do here as good deeds, they will have their influence on the soul. And the soul which we have here is soul only comparatively in relation to our body. So it is much rarer than the body we are composed of. And so rare that it becomes untouchable, unreachable, unpalpable, and somehow you know you are, but you don't know where and how. Everyone is like that. So the question the Messenger has raised, and that is the most wonderful thing I've ever read about the life after death, first time from the Masih Maud writings, that this is a soul in relative terms. But a much rarer soul will be born out of that soul. And in the same relative terms, that would appear like a body. So the corporal concept is also in relative terms. And that soul which will develop from the body will be the child of a healthy body, because that soul which would ultimately serve as body would be given birth here out of our good deeds. So it would be a healthy body which would be well capable of enjoying spiritual pleasures, but with some outside help. So that outside help will also take form. That would be an inner expression of the soul, which will take form in the we desire to have something, and we have it. So that soul would love to have attributes of Allah close to itself, to have them manifest to itself in a wonderful way, as it would fall in love with those attributes much more so in the hereafter than here. So those attributes will also take some expression, some form. And in those rare terms, relatively, they would appear to be corresponding to what you desire within. They would be corresponding to what you desire from outside. So they will be complementary to what you like. That is what I understood from the study of Islami Usul ki philosophy, as it's called in Urdu, the philosophy of the teachings of Islam. And it is so fully supported by the verses of the Quran and traditions that it is not just, it cannot be referred to as a philosophy of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam himself. This is the Quranic teaching. That is why it is entitled The Philosophy of the Teachings of the Quran. So the same applies to hell. And that agony which we feel sometimes, we suffer from, it becomes so intense that some people prefer to be burnt alive in fire than to continue to suffer from that agony. How many women you hear of, how many men sometimes, who destroy themselves, who commit suicide by putting them to fire, by igniting, themselves with the help of
dousing themselves with petrol,
etc. And they know this is the feeling of burning is known to everyone. So which means that inner sense of burning sometimes can become so intense that the outside material sense of burning is paled in comparison to that. Now that will also take a form. So what we say, the hell is not corporal or material. We are only speaking in relative terms known to us here on earth. In the hereafter, what form they will take, but they will take some form. And correspondingly, the inner sense of abhorrence against evil would also be enlarged so many times by so many factors that here the pangs of conscience would be just small thing as compared to that realization of what we have done and what we have missed. So that is how the hell is to be created, but it will not be in the same four dimensions as we know them here. They will coexist. Hell and heaven will coexist.
Yeah.
So this means that the form which will appear to be a form would be of some nature of belonging to some dimensions, as they will not interfere with each other, the hell and the heaven, I mean. So that is what the Holy Quran says. Describing Jannah, that is heaven, the Holy Quran says its magnitude is that of the entire universe. The entire universe, and Jannah are one and the same as far as the vastness and magnitude is concerned. When some of his companions heard this, in amazement they inquired, so where the hell would be, O Prophet of Allah? Imagine how forward in time he was, because he was guided by Allah. Yeah. You never come across any such reference in relation to any other prophet. He said the hell would also occupy the same, but you would not know. It's a fascinating declaration, unbelievable.
Like two parallel universes,
yes. Coexisting, and one not interfering with the other, like the waves crossing. Hundreds of thousands of waves can occupy the same space, and they do not disturb each other.
No.
So it's a fascinating expression,
My concern.
unbelievable. That's one single expression of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam should wipe out atheism from the doubting Tom's minds, right?
My concern was though that with the people in hell, or that this hell like is there any way can they flick over to the?
Please, yes.
Inshallah, they can flick over to heaven.
That's what I mean. What do you know? What do you say by what do you mean by flicking over? I don't know well, but I'll tell you. I know what the question is.
You know the question that I'm asking.
Of course. Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Holy Prophet of Islam, once described the final state, the final condition of hell. Ultimately, it would reach that state. And he describes it as a large empty mansion. There is no one to bolt the doors from inside or lock them from out. They bang against each other with the winds that blow across. There is no sound except the banging of the doors, and only one person would be the occupant or the inmate of that hell. The last one, will be left out. And all the rest would have been removed before that time to heaven, ultimately.
A bit like Rudolf Hess.
When?
A bit like Rudolf Hess
In Spandau
when he was
prison,
imprisoned in Spandau.
That's right, yes.
The only prisoner in the whole vast
No,
prison.
it's he like that. He was created after, much after, many centuries. So when you say like that, it means as if this idea was borrowed from him. But it's the other way around.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
You see? So I don't say he directly borrowed, but this is a natural idea which can be born in one's mind who believes in such things. But anyway, Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam describes it further by saying that after that he would creep out of that hell, the last man, and the hell will be entirely deserted and abandoned. And then he will creep forward and see as if the boundaries of heaven across. Now, that's all a metaphor, of course.
Yeah.
It should be understood. And then he would request God to please open his little window so that he should know what the wind of heaven is, what blows inside, the breeze is in the heaven. So Allah would have the window open towards him, and he would say, what a wind, what a breeze. Is this heaven? So after a while, he'll say, if this is heavenly breeze, what the heaven would be, could I have a little peep into it? Small opening, I could approach and see what was across. So Allah say, oh, yes. You say, gosh, what a thing. I couldn't imagine it to be that beautiful. So after a while, he would be satisfied. For a while, he would be satisfied with just peeping and enjoying the outside view of the heaven. And then he would say, oh God, please, could I have just one step into the heaven to see how it feels inside? Yeah. So God, as if it's metaphorically, would laugh and say, come on, my servant, come and enter the heaven. And then the doors would be opened, and that will be the last of this creation. But there will be many other creations. There have been many other creations in the past. This is eternity we are dealing with. So this chapter will be closed and other chapters will be opening. Maybe somewhere in space, in our dimensions, other prophets will be born and rejected and tormented.
You mean we're very blinkered, we think there's only us, there's only this.
Yes.
And you said there's other creatures outside in this.
No, but even in the whole universe, when it's wiped out as a whole, then it will be reborn, recreated later on. And maybe by that time we are enjoying our otherworldly life, and we have developed enough to be able to exist as a spiritual entity, which is mentioned in the Holy Quran. But it will take a very long time. Maybe by that time the whole earth is all wiped out and reverses to that black hole something which engulfs it and destroys everything, and there is nothingness as far as outside view is concerned, and then it would reappear at a later stage.
They make all the same mistakes that we made.
What I mean to say is, as far as the time is concerned, in the sense of the time as we understand here, I mean, maybe it's just possible that as the last man is ultimately entering the heaven, another religion is born here on earth, and Adam is taking over.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So the possibilities are so numerous, I mean, unimaginable, because we are dealing with eternity. Eternity is unimaginable.